Nothing like being part of, but being a newsmaker, right?
You know, this is great.
Yeah. And I'm just putting my phone on mute 1 second. Hold on. Well, good afternoon, and welcome to our Business Recovery Roundtable 2021 SBA COVID-19 Economic Relief Overview. My name is Lisa Smith. I'm the Executive Director of the Bowie Business Innovation Center. And our speaker today is Rod Johnson, Lending Specialist in the Washington Metropolitan Area District Office of the U.S. Small Business Administration. I'm the Executive Director of the Bowie BIC, which is an award-winning hub for business acceleration in the city of Bowie and Prince George's County, Maryland. We are headquartered at Bowie State University. This afternoon's session is part of the new Bowie Business Recovery Program, which is 8 months of online technical assistance for businesses who can receive webinars, attend roundtables, participate in counseling sessions and open door activities, all designed to help them learn and experience and get information that will accelerate the post-pandemic recovery of their businesses. The Bowie Business Recovery Program is a collaboration between the Bowie Business Innovation Center and the Greater Bowie Chamber of Commerce. It is funded by the city of Bowie. I believe we would all agree that small businesses cannot afford another year like 2020. And fortunately, relief is in sight. Our speaker this afternoon is a longtime friend of the Bowie Business Innovation Center and the Bowie business community. Rod Johnson is an acknowledged expert on the nuts and bolts of the SBA business development programs, and he has been especially busy lately monitoring the updates and improvements to the PPP program, as well as sharing that information with our small businesses. So let's get started. Everyone, please mute your microphones and feel free to post questions in the chat box because we will be answering those as we proceed through the session today. Also, we will email Rod's slides to everyone who is registered. A final reminder, this session is being recorded. So, Rod, over to you. Thank you. Rod, you're on mute.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Rod Johnson with the U.S. Small Business Administration in Washington, D.C., where we cover Montgomery County, Prince George's County, Northern Virginia, and of course, Washington, D.C. So this evening, I have updates for you on various programs. I know you've been hearing about them. The SVOG program, what is that? The Shuttered Venue Opportunity Grant. You've heard about the RRF program, which is the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. Then you've heard about the increase in EIDL, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan that has been raised from 150,000 now up to 500,000. And then of course you have heard about our standard PPP. All right, so this evening, we have a lot to go over because there's just information that is important for all of you to know. I think you've probably, and you can go to the next slide, please. I think that you've probably all have heard lately about the SVOG and the RRF programs. Where the portals were to open today. However, as it's just come over my cell phone, there has been a glitch in getting both of those portals open. So you're gonna have to stay tuned, but we will go over them, okay, in this presentation. So go ahead to the next slide, please. So where are we? So we have all these programs that are rolling out. Why? Because under the American Rescue Plan Act that was signed into law on March 11th, 2021, there were all these new programs that have been rolled out. okay? The latest one is the Restaurant Vitalization Fund. Now, PPP was also expanded for another $7 billion, and the drop dead date has been expanded from March 31st to now May 31st, 2021. So now you still have time to apply for the PPP program. So that's where we are with that. So let's go to the next slide, please. All right, so what I like to do is to break these down into loan programs and then grant programs. So we know the loan programs is the PPP. We know the loan program is the EIDL. We also know that a loan program is the debt relief with the 7A, the 504, and the microloans. The grant programs is the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant. We know that, okay? Then we have the EIDL Advance. So we know about that. And then the Restaurant Revitalization Grant. So we have two sets, grants and then loan programs. All right, next slide, please. And see, this is fun stuff. And it's fun for me because the federal government has come up with plans, right? Grants and loans to help all of the business owners out there to really sustain their businesses during this COVID-19 pandemic. All right. So I just think it's great that there's all this money, all these greenbacks, flowing throughout the United States so that our businesses can sustain themselves. Okay. All right. So here are the takeaways from the Economic Aid and the American Rescue Plan Acts. So there was an expanded PPP eligibility and how funds can be used. Now, if you remember from the last presentation I did, so what were those expanded eligibility? So now you could use PPP money for your QuickBooks, you could use it for your CRM program, you can use it to purchase PPE, you could also use it to restock your inventory, and for those who had damage to your property because of the protests that occurred, whatever your insurance company didn't cover, you could use PPP money to cover the rest. That's on top of, if you recall, rent, lease payments, interest on your commercial mortgage, gas, water, electric, landline cell phone, your landline telephone, your cell phone bill, okay? So those were the expenses that you could use the PPP money for. And then of course, 60% was to be used for payroll. Now for you single member LLCs, sole proprietorships, and 1099s, you know that you could use 100% of the PPP money to pay yourselves, okay? So hopefully you guys remember that. Now, the borrower can select a covered period between 8 and 24 weeks. So you had a longer runway to be able to use the money. The second draw was designed for the hardest hit small businesses. Now remember, you have to use up all the first draw PPP money before you could apply for the second draw. And for the second draw, you may recall that you had to show a 25% reduction in revenues in order to be able to qualify for the second draw, okay? Now, the deduction of expenses covered with forgiveness PPP loan debt on, federal taxes. So now you can you can have those deductions of expenses. There was an updated forgiveness form. If you remember, there were 3 forms. The 3508S form, which only went up to $50,000. You had the 3508 EZ form, and then you had the 3508, what I call the long form. Well, now the short form has been updated from 50,000 up to 150,000 because we found that 86% of the PPP loans were actually $150,000 and below. Now, if you remember, you apply to your bank for forgiveness. Your bank has 60 days, okay, to make a decision. Then they send that on to the SBA. The SBA has 90 days to make a decision on whether or not your loan is partially or fully forgiven. And so that's the process, okay? Now, here's the other thing. The EIDL advance no longer is subtracted from PPP for the loan forgiveness amount, okay? All right, next slide, please. Now, there, under the, I call it the Biden-Harris Act, there was a prioritization for mom and pop businesses, okay? So what happened, there was a 14-day exclusive application period during which lenders could submit applications for the smallest businesses and nonprofits that had fewer than 20 employees, all right? And then there was increased support for the independent contractors, sole proprietors, and single member LLCs, all right? And we'll go over that in a minute. Next slide, please. So here was the biggest difference. There was a change in the calculation, right, for the 1040 Schedule C. So if you all recall, we were using line 31 on the Schedule C. And what was that calculation? We were taking the net profit divided by 12 times 2.5, okay? But now what we're doing is you're able to use the gross income, which if I recall is line 7, okay? You take line 7, gross income, divided by 12 times 2.5 to calculate your loan amount. So that was a huge, huge change, because with using the gross income calculation, there were more companies that were able to actually secure PPP money. Now here's key, because I get a lot of calls on this one. This is not retroactive for Schedule C filers who submitted a PPP application using the old form, okay? If you submitted a Schedule C PPP application prior to March 3rd, 2021, you can try to speak with your lender immediately to see if it can be withdrawn or canceled so the new form can be used. I would just tell you that, just remember, your banks are inundated with applications, so they may not be willing to go back, okay, and withdraw the old application and, you know, use the new form. Now, here's the key. This one's a big one. If the loan has already been dispersed and lender has filed a Form 1502 report, which is something they sent to the SBA, it cannot be canceled and no changes can be made to the loan amount calculation, okay? So again, if you already have the loan, then you can't go back and change anything. You have what you have, all right? Next slide, please. All right, so here's something also. The eligibility has been expanded and additional steps have been taken to promote fair and equitable relief. Now, some of you may have already experienced this where the processing of the loan ceased because there were those who were delinquent or who defaulted on the student loans, or there was a prior non-financial felony fraud conviction. Well, now those barriers have been removed, and so now the application can be processed. Now this last one is key. The new expanded rules clarified all persons lawfully residing in the U.S. have access to the PPP, permitting the use of individual tax identification numbers, ITINs, which is a 9-digit number as an identifier for a PPP borrower, okay? Next slide, please. So what is a first draw loan? Well, we know that you have to have been in business by February 15, 2020. We know that you can choose an 8 or 24-week covered period. We know that additional entities are now eligible, like chambers of commerce and 501c7s, which are considered social clubs. Like some of you may belong to Burning Tree or Congressional Country Club in some of these places. They are now eligible, okay? Now, but you must apply, as I mentioned earlier, by May 31st or until the money has run out, all right? And actually, I'm waiting for the latest information on how much money is left in the program. All right, next slide, please. All right, so here are some of the newly eligible organizations. As I mentioned, the 501c nonprofit organizations. and certain internet news organizations and periodical publications. They're now eligible. And of course, we still have the partnerships, the corporations, tribal businesses, the chambers of commerce, sole proprietorships, independent contractors, and your single member LLCs, all eligible. Next slide, please. The second draw, remember, 25% reduction in gross receipts between comparable quarters in 2019 and 2020. So you might use September 30, 2019 versus September 30, 2020. It has to show a 25% reduction in gross receipts. The maximum loan amount is only $2 million, okay? And your first and second draw loan covered periods cannot overlap. Now, here's something that doesn't really get discussed that much. If you are using QuickBooks, compiled or reviewed quality financial statements, as the majority owner, you must sign and attest to the fact that the numbers that you're submitting to your bank are actually true, okay? So you're making a representation that the numbers are good. If you receive audited financial statements, then you don't need to actually sign and date those, okay? But you must show a 25% reduction. Not 24.8, but 25%. We're not rounding up. All right, next slide, please. So we know the application process, right? You fill out the application, you send it to your bank, or frankly, you go in your bank's portal, you complete the application, they process the loan, they get the SBA authorization number, and then you'll have the documents sent to you, you sign, and the loan is usually dispersed within 10 days. Now, I have some URLs here if you don't have a lender to find a lender, but it's easy to remember, sba.gov/PPP. And it has everything that you need, the applications, the forgiveness process, the frequently asked questions, the interim rulings, everything is there, sba.gov/PPP. All right, next slide, please. All right, so we know if you don't get forgiven, now I'm gonna jump down to the last bullet because this one still surprises me. If the borrower does not apply for forgiveness, and I don't understand why you would not apply for forgiveness, okay, payments start 10 months after the last day of your covered period. Now, I know all of us that are listening to this presentation are going to apply for forgiveness. I know all of you are, so I know this last bullet will not apply to you, okay? All right, so however, if a portion of your loan doesn't get forgiven, remember the interest rate is at 1% fixed. There's no collateral, no personal guarantees, no prepayment penalties, no fees. Your repayment period is 5 years if you receive the loan June 5th and after. Before June 5th is a 2-year repayment period, okay? Your lender will notify you when your loan actually begins, okay? All right, next slide, please. All right, forgiveness. Just remember, documentation, documentation, documentation is how you're going to get full forgiveness. So make sure you have your bank statements, a copy of the invoices, a copy of the canceled checks, okay, showing that what expenses were paid for, okay? So just remember that. Also remember, idle advances are no longer deducted from PPP loan forgiveness payments. Expenses paid with the PPP loan funds are now federally tax deductible. Remember, for a while there, we were all sitting on pins and needles wondering if the loans that were converted to grants would be tax deductible. At the federal level, it is tax deductible. With the various states, that may be a different story, but at the federal level, it is tax deductible, okay? I talked to you about the expanded uses of the PPP money toward the expenses. And now we have a simplified EZ forgiveness form for loans 150,000 and below. All right, next slide, please. All right, so this is the one that everybody's wanted to hear about. EIDL, okay? So we also know that now EIDL has been lifted, the cap has been lifted from $150,000 up to $500,000, okay? Now, you may want to take out your pencil and pad for this. So if you already have an EIDL loan and you want an increase, you're going to email COVID EIDL increase requests at SBA.gov. COVID EIDL increase requests at SBA.gov. In the subject line, you're going to put your 10-digit application number. In the body of the email, you're going to put your EIDL, your business name, address, telephone number, EIN. Okay, that's what you're going to put. So
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please?
COVID EIDL increase requests at SBA.gov. That's what that's where you're going to send that email to for your EIDL increase. Okay. And in the subject line, you're going to put the 10-digit application number. You're going to put your business name, address, telephone number, okay, in the body of the email. Don't send any financial statements at that time. The Office of Disaster Assistance will come back to you, okay, with the information that they need from you, okay? So one more time, COVID EIDL increase request at SBA.gov, all right? Now.
Excuse me, Rod, it's Audrey. Good afternoon. Are we waiting until we receive an email from SBA? Because I know some business owners have already gotten that and some have not. Or are we just going on and being proactive and sending the email? If we
You're going to send the email.
Okay.
Yes. But you know what? I'm glad you asked that. All right. So what you're going to do is if you had applied for the EIDL advance, but you didn't receive the EIDL advance, then they're going to reach out to you. And maybe you didn't receive the EIDL advance because the money had run out. And so they're going to actually reach out to you. Or you receive the EIDL advance and maybe you only got $3,000. They're going to reach out to you so that they can give you the remaining $7,000 to take it up to the $10,000. So that's when they will actually reach out to you, is for the EIDL advance, okay? Now, keep in mind the program has been extended until December 31st. The terms of the loan are what? 3.75% fixed for businesses, 2.75% for nonprofits. It's a 30-year loan. If it's over $25,000, it's going to be secured by a UCC1, right? Blanket lien on the assets of the business. If the loan is over $200,000, you will have to issue the personal guarantee for all owners who have a 20% or more interest in the company, okay? So for loans over 200,000, 20% interest in the business, you will be asked to provide your personal guarantee, all right? Now, you can have 500 or fewer employees that are eligible, okay? And of course, all businesses, according to the SBA size standards, are eligible, and of course, nonprofits, okay? All right, next slide, please. Now, here's the other thing, deferments. The loan limit is up to 24 months of economic injury via a $500,000 maximum loan. You do not need to submit an increased request. That's what they keep saying, but really you do. Yes, it says the SBA will reach out directly and provide details about how to request an increase, but actually I've given it to you, okay? So I'm gonna say it again, COVID EIDL increase request at SBA.gov, okay? Now, all SBA disaster loan payments are deferred. So loans made in 2020, right? The first payment due 24 months from the date of the note. And for loans made this year, the first payment due is 18 months from the date of the note. All right, so that gives you a long time really for your cash flow to really improve, anywhere from 18 to 24 months. where you're not making a payment on a loan, okay? So hopefully, as people are getting vaccinated and we're slowly reopening our states and municipalities, you'll be able to start getting some business in the door. And then probably in 2022, hopefully you will be generating, enough cash flow to start repaying, the loan back, okay? All right, next slide, please. And that's the idea for that to happen. All right, so debt relief. We don't hear enough about debt relief. So for a new 504, 7A or microloan, between February 1st and September 30, the SBA will pay 3 months of principal and interest after the loan is fully dispersed, okay? And that's key. And after any deferment, capped at $9,000 per month, all right? So your loan has to be fully funded or fully dispersed, and then the SBA will kick in with those principal and interest loans. Now, borrowers do not need to apply for this debt relief. Now, what I would do is call my bank and make sure that this is happening, because it is supposed to be automatic, but I would call my bank and make sure it is happening. Now, letters have already been distributed to eligible borrowers, and you can find what that letter looks like, and there's the URL, sba.gov/coronavirus relief, okay? And you can get a copy of the letter. Contact your lender with the debt relief questions. Don't call me, call your lender. All right, next slide, please. The targeted EIDL advance. Now, this is very nuanced, okay? So remember, it says no action required until contacted by the SBA via direct mail. So the new program, only businesses and nonprofits that applied for an EIDL, right? And they're in a low to moderate income community. 2, you've suffered greater than a 30% economic loss, which is, greater than what it is for PPP. And you have 300 or fewer employees, okay? Now, if you meet the above, a targeted EIDL advance will occur, okay, per funding availability. Now, remember, the full EIDL advance amount is $10,000. So as I said before, if you only got 3,000, now you're going to get an additional 7. If you got 1,000, you're going to get an additional $9,000. Okay, and it says the program will provide $10,000 to those who apply for an EIDL but didn't receive an advance payment due to a lack of funding. So that's the other criteria. So you'll get the full $10,000. Okay. And the SBA is emailing those who may qualify with instruction on how to determine eligibility. All right, next slide, please. Actually, I'm excited that the cap has been raised from 150 to 500,000. That will help a lot of you out. Now, items needed to verify eligibility, as you've heard me on my other presentations, that 2019 seems to, there are a lot of people that still haven't filed their 2019 federal tax returns. We're now in the 2020 tax filing season. So please go ahead and get the 2019 and 2020 done at the same time. They were supposed to be filed on March 15th. So go ahead, let's get them filed so that you can show eligibility for this program. The EIN Social Security number has to be shown. That was in the original EIDL application. Now they're going to be looking at monthly gross receipts for 2019, 2020, and it says the completed month for 2021. So the completed month will be up through March 31st of this year. They're going to confirm that the information on the original EIDL application is still accurate, okay? And you're going to be required to sign a 4506T. So that's going to have the 2018, the 2019, and the 2020, okay? Which means that you will have had to file those 3 years worth of taxes, okay? All right, next slide, please. So one submission, please. Only one submission for each targeted EIDL advance can be made. Please carefully review your bank information, because people are putting their personal bank information when it really should be their business bank information. That's what slows up the processing of your loan. Make sure your EIN number that you're putting on is the same one on the original application. That's also slowing down the processing for the EIDL loan. As that third bullet says, make sure the information is 100% correct, okay, due to the limited targeted EIDL advance funds. So please get it right the first time, okay, because all you're going to do is slow down the process, and then SBA will not be able to make reconsiderations. Now, please don't call me at the district office. Don't call the guys down at the Office of Disaster Assistance. Give them 21 days to actually, look at your application, make sure it's completed, and the 4506T is received, okay? Now, if you have questions, you can go to targetedadvance@sba.gov. Targetedadvance@sba.gov. So please don't call me in the district office asking me, can I give you a status update? If you need a status update, go to targetedadvance@sba.gov. Now, if you're approved, you will receive an email ACH deposit to your bank account, okay, to the one that's been provided. But please, let's make sure that it is the correct account number. All right, next slide, please. This is a lot of information. Now, the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant, that portal was actually supposed to go live today at 12 noon. Unfortunately, there have been some complications. We all know who's eligible: theatrical producers, live venue operators or promoters, talent representatives, museums, zoos, aquariums, all of those meet the qualifications. You must have been in operation as of February 29th, 2020. And again, the portal was slated to open today at 12 noon. Let's hope it'll be open tomorrow by 12 noon. All right, next slide, please. Now, what do you do now? Okay, so you got to get registered in SAM at sam.gov, okay? Review the updated FAQs and the preliminary checklist. And of course, you can go to the special website at sba.gov/SVO grant, okay? Now, if you were in operation on January 1st, 2019, and here's the formula: 45% of the 2019 gross in revenue is what you'll get, okay? Or if you began operations after January 1st, 2019, the average monthly gross revenue for each full month in operation during 2019 multiplied by 6. So here you have the calculation for you right in front of you, okay? If you need help, go to Bowie Bick, Women Business Center, SCORE, Veterans, the V-Box. There's plenty of assistance for you out there. But here is the formula right here in front of you for the SVOG grants, okay? All right, next slide, please. And go ahead to the next slide. We've already talked about all these. So keep in mind, these programs are really supposed to be for the hardest hit industry and businesses. So here we go, $5 billion fund for 5,000 payments to those hit hardest. That's for the supplemental targeted EIDL advance payment. The restaurant revitalization fund and grants. There's been $28.6 billion in funds for grants to eligible entities in this hard hit industry, restaurants and hotels. There's going to be a maximum $5 million grant per location with an aggregate maximum amount of $10 million. That's pretty good money. Okay, then you have the Community Navigator Pilot Program. There's $100 million for grants to eligible organizations supporting efforts to improve access to COVID-19 pandemic assistance program and resources. So if you're one of those companies out there that's helping, you have people or nurses that can help vaccinate people. There's been $100 million worth of grants set aside for your company. You got $75 million to support outreach efforts. So if you're one of those companies that are there to help get the word out for people to get vaccinated, okay, including the creation of a telephone hotline for information and referral services, there's $75 million out there for you, okay? Man, I love all this money that's flowing all across the United States for you business owners to sustain your companies, all right? Next slide, please. And so, as we wait for the next slide, keep in mind, you have state assistance, right? You have state loans and grants, you have municipal loan and grants, you have all these federal programs, which consist of loan and grants. So there's just a ton of money out there. There's really just a lot of money out there for you guys to sustain your business. All you need to do really is have your 2019 and 2020 1040 with your Schedule Cs, or your 1120S, or your 1120s, or your 1065s, or your 1099s, okay? As long as you have those documents, you will be able to have access to all of these funds. So please, I implore you to go ahead and get your tax return done. Now, since we're stuck on this slide, I'm going to talk about the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, okay? Now, once that link is up and running, it's going to be restaurants.sba.gov, okay? Restaurants.sba.gov. This is where you're going to go to apply for the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. Now, once you go there, there's going to be a form called a 3172 form. It's an SBA form that you have to complete. And I know I'm going to sound like a broken record, but guess what you're going to need to have ready? Either your QuickBooks statements, your 1065 with your K1s, your 1099, your 1040 with the Schedule C, or 1040 with your Schedule F for farmers, okay? You're going to have to fill out the 4506T for 2018, 2019, and 2020. So as you keep hearing, it comes back to those tax returns, folks. So even for the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, okay, you're still going to need tax returns. There's no way of getting around it. You got to file your tax returns, okay? So restaurants.sba.gov, that portal is not up and running yet. It was supposed to be just like the SVOG at 12 o'clock noon today, but we're having some hiccups with it. So stay tuned. I'll let Lisa know when both of these programs become live, okay? So that you can go in and, avail yourselves of these opportunities. So next slide, please. I think with the next slide, it talks about, there you go, our resource partners. So you have SCORE, you have your SBDCs, you have your women's business centers, you have your veterans business outreach centers. You have all of those along with Bowie Big to assist you, right, with filling out the forgiveness, to apply for the first draw PPP, the second draw PPP, the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, the Shuttered Venue Opportunity Grant. You have all this free assistance, right, for you to get your hands on the money, all right? Next slide, please. And these slides will be available to you. And as you know, to stay connected to us, you can follow us on Twitter, on Instagram, Wamato, which is our address, okay? And then you see all the URLs, the SBA.gov relief, SBA.gov PPP, SBA.gov EIDL, SBA.gov SVO grant, okay? So these links will take you directly to where you need to go to get the information you need for the different programs, all right? And so with that, let's open it up for questions.
Hey, Rod, this is Crystal. The first question in the chat box is can PPP be used for outstanding business insurance payments?
All right, so I went over I did go over those expenses. So it's the expenses that I named. Insurance wasn't in them.
All right. The next question is there anything else to include in the body of the email besides the business name, address, EIN, and telephone number? Do we put the amount of the increase that we are seeking?
No, remember, you're not doing that. It's the name, address, telephone number, EIN, okay? That's what you're putting in the body of the email. In the first section, you're going to put in your 10-digit application number, okay?
The next question is SBA reached out to me in January via email requesting financial documents. I provided the documents and have not received a response yet. Should I reach out to them again?
Yes.
He says, I'm referring to the EIDL advance. My business is located in Bowie. Am I no longer eligible to receive the grant?
No, you are. Of course you are. You're just slow. I mean, to be frank with you, because of the millions and millions of applications that they're receiving, they're actually overwhelmed in the Office of Disaster Assistance. We're still continuing to hire to handle the workload. So I would go ahead and email them and just see, if they can tell you where you are in the queue. But I'm pretty sure all it is that they're overwhelmed, because there are millions and literally millions and millions of applications coming in.
Next question. I had someone apply for the SBA PPP for me. He used blueacorn.co. I have only been receiving emails from Blue Acorn, nothing from SBA. I was sent a DocuSign to sign an agreement, which I did and submitted. Now I have not heard back for some days from Blue Corn or SBA. Please, any advice on what I can do?
Well, you're not going to hear from the SBA directly. You're going to, if it's PPP, you're going to hear from whoever did it for you. I don't know why you just didn't go directly to a bank, but now you got to wait for that vendor that you use to get back to you.
Okay, next question. I have a nurse staffing agency and I would like additional information regarding funding for the American Rescue Plan Act.
We just went over it.
Next question. You may have covered this, but the extended funds for EIDL, how are they determining how much of an increase you will be allowed to get?
I think it's going to be up to like 6 months of working capital, but they'll tell you that in the email.
Next question. If I just received the PPP loan, can I apply for the Shuttered Venue Grant Operations Grant? On the form, I just signed the language and I could not.
So wait a minute.
The language said that they could not apply.
Right, it's going to be one or the other. You have to determine which one. Well, if you got PPP, then it's a moot point. You got PPP.
Next question. Currently getting unemployment, but want to participate in PPP because I have an editing business. Can I do so?
Yeah, once you come off unemployment, you can't double dip. It's one or the other. You're going to be on unemployment or you're going to apply for PPP and use the PPP money to pay yourself 100%.
Okay. If I requested an increase last year, sent in documentation and have not heard back from SBA, do I need to submit another request increase?
For which program?
Doesn't say.
I'll assume it's idle. Just go ahead and email them.
Okay. IRS just processed my 2019 tax return. EIDL was denied because they couldn't verify the 4507, right? Do I need to reapply?
Actually, I would actually call and or email the people down in the Office of Disaster Assistance.
For the EIDL, I'm sorry.
But I think that I just hear that they have just filed the 2019 tax return.
Correct.
So are we sure that the SBA actually, I mean, not the SBA, the IRS actually has that 2019? And I'm just going to
Well,
say.
it says IRS just processed my 2019 tax return.
They just processed it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so at least they have it. All right, so yeah, go ahead now and go back to the Office of Disaster Assistance and let them know that the IRS now has it. Because I'm sure that was the issue. The SBA couldn't verify that the 2019 had already been accepted and processed by the IRS, so it got rejected. I'm like 99.9% sure that's what happened. So she's going to have to go back to the Office of Disaster Assistance and let them know that yes, it has been processed. But you know, folks, this is what happens when you file late. A year late at that. Yeah, I'm rubbing it in. It's a year late when you're filing for 2019. And we're in the 2020 tax
I did not file a year late. I filed last April and it took them a year to process it.
It took them a year. It took the IRS a year to process it?
Yes.
A year?
A year. My taxes just got processed. They haven't since last year, and I've been calling them almost every month. And they just told me, just 48 hours ago, it got processed.
A year? Okay, I stand corrected. Thank you for saying that.
You're welcome.
The next question for the EIDL loan, can a single member LLC who used the money to pay the member's salary get loan forgiveness, and what percentage?
Did you say idle?
I did.
There is no forgiveness for idle.
All right.
PPP, not idle. And let's make the distinction with idle. So there's the idle advance, up to $10,000, and you don't have to do anything. Unlike PPP, you have to show how you use the money and have the canceled checks and the bank statements and the invoices. With the idle advance, you don't have to do any of that, okay, at all. That was the great thing about the $10,000 for the idle advance. You just got the money because you were a legitimate business. So there's nothing to do for forgiveness. It's just a grant, just a $10,000 grant. Here it is, $10,000. Now, for the idle loan, it is truly a loan. It's whatever the dollar amount is, it's a loan over a 30-year period, but now you have anywhere from an 18 to 24-month deferral period. So nothing's forgiven for the idle loan.
For the extended funds for EIDL, how are they determining how much of an increase you will be allowed to get?
I think it's going to be 6 months working capital. I actually haven't seen the true formula yet. Hopefully they'll send that to me so that when I do these presentations, just like PPP, I can give you the exact formula. But from what I'm told, it's going to be like up to 6 months working capital.
I requested an EIDL increase last year, sent in documentation and have not heard back from SBA. Do I need to submit another request for increase or just wait?
No, well, I wouldn't wait. I would actually call and or email them and put in your 10-digit, well, put in your 10-digit application number and find out where you are in the queue.
Okay. Rod, that's the last. Nope, here's another one. For PPP, can a single member LLC who used the money to pay 100%, we can answer this, of the member's salary get loan forgiveness?
Yes, in fact, that's the easiest way to receive loan forgiveness. You take the PPP money, you write a check off of one account, the business account, you deposit it into your personal account, okay? So now what do you have? You have two bank statements that actually show where the money originated, where it went to, and you also have the canceled check from your personal checking account that shows that, you know, the money was used for payroll. And so when you write that check, or when you wrote the check, hopefully in the memo line, you put, you know, self payroll, and you made that deposit into your personal account. So yes, that's the best way. If you're a single member LLC, a sole proprietor, or a 1099 contractor, that's the best way to get 100% forgiveness, is where you've paid yourself.
Okay. If you got approved for a certain amount for the EIDL, but did not accept it all, will they
Oh, no.
will they
There was-
wait a minute, will they consider what they approved you for at first?
Well, I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will. I just don't understand why you didn't take it all the first time. You don't turn down money when you're trying to sustain yourself. But yeah, I'm sure that they will look at what they approved before, and you might even get lucky, because remember, it was now that it was supposed to be 2 months of working capital to be capped at $150,000. I think now it's supposed to be 6 months of working capital, right? That will be capped at $500,000. So you may even wind up getting more money.
I was about to accept unemployment. Can I cancel it or not accept it? I didn't realize I was not allowed.
All right, so here's to determine, this is what you have to determine. Will you collect more funds under unemployment? Or if you apply for PPP, will you collect more money? Now, let's just say you're a single member LLC. So you're going to use line 7 on Schedule C. You're going to use the formula that's in the presentation here, or the one, you know, what I've said. Take that line 7 number, gross income, divided by 12 times 2.5. So that's what so now you know your loan amount. So is that loan amount greater, or is it less than what you would get on Social Security? Excuse me, unemployment. So you have to do the math to really determine which is the best outcome for you. So do that first before you cancel anything. Apply the formula first, and then decide which one is best for you.
As a single member LLC of 2 companies, is it possible to receive 2 PPP loans? One forgiven. Now, I think she's saying one forgiven. Now, can we apply for another first draw for the new business, even if we use the same 1040?
Well, you're not going to be eligible because you will have had to have been in business by February 20th, right? So if it's a new business, as you're saying, it's not going to be eligible.
How do they determine the monthly working capital amount for the EIDL loan?
Yeah, I'm not sure yet. Remember, I said I don't have that yet. Stay tuned.
Should we be careful in the number of UCC filings we get in business?
Well, there's going to be, all right, so let's just say you have a banking relationship, you have a line of credit. So what should happen is that you would ask you would actually contact the SBA and ask them to subordinate their UCC1. Let me see if I can find the actual address. All right, so it's BHAM dot realty, REALTY at SBA.gov. So that's if you want the EIDL subordination. If you have a banking relationship and the PPP needs to be subordinated, is LRSC.servicing at sba.gov. Okay, so for the EIDL, it's BHAM dot realty, REALTY at SBA.gov. And for the PPP subordination, is LRSC dot servicing at SBA.gov. Okay, and that's where you're asked, that's where you have a current banking relationship and you need a subordination, whether it's a PPP or an EIDL. Those are the two addresses where you would ask for that subordination. Of course, you're going to put your company name, address, telephone number, and EIN in those emails so that, you know, we can easily pull it up. Okay.
Here's a follow-on about the person with the two businesses. She says both are before 2019. And she said, when I say new, I meant it's a first draw on a business that I didn't file the PPP on. She says, but the business has been in operation since 2019. I just didn't think COVID would still be going. So she filed a first and second PPP on one business, but has another business that would be eligible, but have the same tax.
You can't, not with the same tax ID number, no. If there were separate tax ID numbers, okay, but not if it has the same EIN number.
Federal taxes, separate tax ID.
If they have separate EIN numbers, then you're fine. If they don't have separate EIN numbers, no, you're not.
Same federal tax. Thank you. Okay, I guess that's our last question.
Ah, good. Just remember, contact, you have all, well, you have all these SBA URLs, right? At that to assist you to where you can go. But remember, you have SCORE, SBOC, the veterans, the Women's Business Center, the SBDCs, the chambers. There's plenty of free assistance out there for you, okay? One other thing I do want to mention, if you've applied for your second PPP and there's a hold on the account, work with your bank, and the bank is to work with their SBA processing center. We're the district office here in Washington, D.C., so we don't originate, process, or approve any loans out of our office. All we do is we actually disperse the policies for these various programs out to the banks and the chambers and our other resource partners. So typically, we're not going to be of much help to you when you're trying to find out where you are in the process of your EIDL advance or EIDL loan or your PPP or soon to be restaurant revitalization fund or your shuttered venue operators grant. So we don't, out of our office, we don't have access to be able to tell you where you are in the process. So you'll have to work directly with the Office of Disaster Assistance at the SBA or with your bank.
400 02 is going to the action.
There are some questions about the two companies. Again, they're unclear on your answer.
I can't help them any further than that.
Okay.
If you have two separate EIN numbers, then you can apply.
Okay.
Is that it, Crystal?
Here's more. How do they determine the monthly working capital amount for the EIDL loan?
I'm not sure yet. I'm still waiting for that.
Okay, that's all I have. There are many asking if they could have your contact information.
Well, we have an answer for that. Rod, this has been an amazing little bit like an hour and a half here already. Hour and a half here at this point. And I have a great answer for everybody that's listening. I want to thank everybody for signing up and participating today. And we anticipated that you might have some extra questions. And so if you go to the buoybusinessrecovery.com website, or also you reply to one of the e-flyers that you'll be getting from us, you can sign up to actually get a chance to talk to Rod a week from today. That is the 15th of April from 4 to 5:30. Rod will have a number of time slots, and he'll make some phone calls and talk directly with folks that have questions specific about their company. So there's another opportunity to do that, but we won't be doing it on this particular call. Okay? So
Yes.
businessrecovery.com, you get another chance to talk to Rod a week from today, 14th of April. Sorry, 15th of April. I'm sorry, I need another cup of coffee at this point. 15th of April, yeah, from 4 to 5:30. And I just want to say, wow, and our small businesses, Rod, thank you. We appreciate you. And, you know, we look forward to having you back because at this rate, we're going to be talking about support for businesses for a long time. And you really have made a tremendous difference in our business community. So I just huge thank you to all of you. And I think if there's nothing else, then I will just say thank you and good night, and check our website for upcoming events. Thanks to all.
Thank you.